Okay, everybody, welcome to House Education, Wednesday, February 12th. Going to have a presentation this morning to refresh us veterans and to help our new folks understand pre-kindergarten Vermont, the pre-kindergarten law, the upcoming presentation that we're going to have on the pre-kindergarten report, how pre-kindergarten and our public school systems interplay. And I think without further ado, we'll turn it over to our Reg Council presenters. Welcome, good morning, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good morning. Katie McGlynn, Office of Legislative Counsel.
Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel.
I'll start off. We're going to walk through what's in statute around pre-K law. Before I do that, I recognize that I don't spend a lot of time in this room, so I just wanted to tell you where I spend more of my time. So I work on healthcare and human services issues. So I spend a lot of time with your colleagues up and on the third floor in the 40s. And I staff issues related to childcare and licensing of childcare facilities, which is in part what brings me in here this morning as it touches on pre-K. So without further ado, I will pull up what I'm calling our cheat sheet. It's in the format of questions and answers to try to walk us through and get the big picture of what Vermont's universal pre-K program entails. So first, what is pre-kindergarten? That is a defined term in the statute. It means services designed to provide pre-kindergarten children developmentally appropriate early development and learning experiences based on Bell's, Vermont's early learning standards. And you'll notice the use of pre-kindergarten child or children. That's also a defined term. So when we look at Roman numeral 2, who receives pre-kindergarten services under Vermont's pre-K program, all pre-kindergarten children in the state are eligible for Vermont's pre-K program. So this is not means tested. It's regardless of socioeconomic status. The statute defines pre-kindergarten child as a child who, as of the date established by the district of residence for kindergarten eligibility, is 3 years of age, 4 years of age, or is 5 years of age, but not yet enrolled in kindergarten. Under Roman numeral 3, what pre-kindergarten services are provided under Vermont's pre-K program? If a parent or guardian chooses to have their child participate in the state's pre-K program, that's important. This is an opt-in program. So a family doesn't necessarily have to choose to send their child to pre-kindergarten. They don't have to take advantage of the benefit, this publicly funded benefit. But if a family chooses to opt into the program, then an enrolled pre-kindergarten child shall receive publicly funded pre-K services for not fewer than 10 hours a week for 35 weeks of the year. Under Vermont's pre-K program, publicly funded pre-K education hours can only be provided by certain providers. And that's what we'll look at in Roman numeral 4. So who are these providers? In statute, they're referred to as the pre-qualified providers. So if a parent or guardian chooses to have their child participate in the state's pre-K program, pre-K education can be provided in the following types of pre-qualified programs. First, a pre-qualified private provider. So that means a private provider outside of the public school system. And that program has to meet the qualifications that are set forth in statute. Do you want to talk about the public?
So the other option is, so they could attend a private program, or they could also attend a program provided by a public school district. And they can choose to attend a program in their district or operates one, or they could choose to attend a program located outside their district. And what the program looks like in a public school setting is up to the school district. So some school districts run those 10 hours and some offer more hours. And we get in later on into the presentation on how that is built into school budgets.
That's referred to as a mixed delivery system, right? Is that what we still refer to?
I think it's not a defined term, mixed delivery system. That is sort of the challenge, but the concept that pre-kindergarten services are provided by private providers and public providers is true.
Can I just add one? Yeah. This, as Katie said, this mixed delivery is a term you will hear in this area. It is not a legally defined term.
Okay.
And so if you ever hear someone either in the context of pre-K or in any other context using the term mixed delivery service, I would encourage you to ask what that means to them, because it could be something different than what we are talking about here.
I'm glad I brought it up.
Yes.
Okay. Under Roman numeral 5, what are the qualifications for a pre-qualified provider? So statute itself lays out some qualifications, and then the statute also has rulemaking authority. So as you might imagine, is it AOE the state board?
Statutes, the rules live under the state board, although the statute says AOE.
Okay, I'm glad I clarified that. So rules have been adopted, and those rules provide a little bit more guidance about what it means to be pre-qualified and what the qualifications are. So in terms of what's in statutes, AOE and AHS are to jointly determine whether a private or public provider of pre-K education is qualified to provide publicly funded pre-K services, and they are to maintain a database of pre-qualified providers. The agencies are to have joint rules that must address the minimum quality standards to achieve pre-qualification status, including a pre-qualified program must have at least one of the following: an accreditation from the National Association of the Education of Young Children, or at least 4 stars in the Department for Children and Families STAR system. I'm going to pause there and talk a little bit about what the STAR system is, because I don't think this committee interacts with that so much. So STARS means Step Ahead Recognition System. It's a program that's been implemented by DCF. It has changed forms over the years, but it's meant to look at providers providing services. And it's there are incentives built in to encourage providers to sort of move up the STARS ladder, if you will. And as you move up the ladder, the services provided are more robust for families. So it also, there could be quality and money linked. The higher if you're moving up stars, or the higher level of stars you are, there could be money from DCF for having that higher standard of care. So for the point of
Can I just ask you, when you
Yeah.
say more money available from DCF?
Yeah.
higher level, in what form is that?
it's like connected to CCFAP. So it's not that Act 76 sort of separated those a little bit more. So it's more like bonus payments versus built into the rate structure.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions about that? No. Okay. So for our purposes, a pre-qualified program provider, we talked about they could be accredited. They would have, or they would have at least 4 stars in the STAR system, or 3 stars in DCF STAR system if the provider has developed a plan approved by the Commissioner of DCF, Secretary of Education, to achieve additional stars. Might be helpful to know there are 5 stars in the STAR system. Other requirements in statute is that a licensed provider must employ or contract for services of at least 1 teacher who is licensed and endorsed in early childhood education or early childhood special education. And if the provider of pre-K services is a registered child care home, that provider, and the provider is not licensed and endorsed in early childhood education or early childhood special education, they must receive regular active supervision and training from a teacher who is licensed in early childhood education or early childhood special education. So when we're talking about the private network of childcare services, and we're talking about licensed providers, registered providers. A childcare home is what you would think of as receiving childcare services within somebody's home. Those childcare homes can be either licensed or registered. It depends on the size of the program, how many children they're serving. So registered would be the smaller programs. A licensed childcare home would serve a larger population of kids. And then a center-based program would also be a licensed program. And then I just pulled a few items from rule. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are other qualifications to be a pre-qualified provider. So conducting child development assessments using AOE's assessment tool twice annually is a requirement. Providing parents and guardians support of the pre-K child's developmental progress 2 times annually. Permitting on-site unannounced visits from AOE, DCF, or the school district staff. And also participating in trainings. Over to you.
Yep. So how does the family opt into Vermont's pre-kindergarten program? So if a parent or guardian chooses to have their child participate, like Katie said, this is an opt-in program, then they would contact their school district of residence and say, this is where I would like my child to go. And if it's the program operated by the district of residence, then the child would be enrolled in the district of residence program. And if it is a private provider or a located outside of the child's district of residence, then the home school district, the district of residence, would pay tuition to that program. What geographic constraints exist in Vermont's pre-kindergarten program? So there is, at the very end of this statute, and we are entitled, so the pre-K Act 166 context for state funds for pre-K services lives in Title 16 in the same chapter as the tuition program. So super confusing because they're 2 separate programs. But the pre-kindergarten statute allows for a school district to essentially define geographic boundaries within which the children that live in their district can choose to go to pre-K, to a pre-qualified provider. So the boundaries would be jointly determined by AOE and AHS in consultation with the school board, private pre-kindergarten providers, parents of pre-kindergarten children, and other interested parties, pursuant to a process that's laid out in the rules. And then the school district has discretion to pay pre-kindergarten tuition outside that region if a child is unable to access publicly funded pre-K within the region. I don't know how this, I don't know how many school districts do this in the wild, but this is an option that exists.
So when we have our joint meeting and get a lot of this information from the pre-K report, these are good questions to end this.
If there is no geographic boundary, there's no limitation as long as it's a pre-qualified provider. There are some reporting requirements in statute. And so we've just kind of listed a few of those out. Every pre-qualified provider is required to report to AOE the results of child development assessments for each enrolled child using the assessment tool approved by AOE at least 2 times annually. Pre-qualified providers are also required to submit financial reports on forms provided by AOE detailing the cost of pre-K education on an annual basis. And then to the General Assembly, there's an annual reporting requirement regarding the monitoring and evaluation system that AOE and DCF jointly run. We're on the last page here. How does tuitioning work within the pre-kindergarten program? So the term tuition, as you all know, is used in both the pre-K context and the K through 12 context, but the process and considerations for each are different. Pre-kindergarten tuition is paid according to 16 VSA 829 only. K through 12 is paid according to 16 VSA sections 821 through 828. Those are the tuition statutes. Those are the statutes that require school districts to operate a school or pay tuition. Those are the statutes that define who is eligible to receive tuition in the K through 12 context. So for example, if a student chooses to attend a pre-kindergarten program provided by an approved independent school, in order to qualify for tuition for pre-kindergarten, the approved independent school would also need to be a pre-qualified private pre-kindergarten provider. Everyone straight on that? Great. Approved independent school, K through 12, pre-qualified provider, pre-K. Just because you're one doesn't mean you qualify for the other. How does the funding work? So school districts pay pre-kindergarten tuition to the program of the parent's choice. And pre-kindergarten education costs, whether it is a district-run program or tuition, is part of a school district's education spending. So it's rolled into all of the other expenses. Pre-kindergarten students who are getting those 10 hours or more, so by law, they are allowed up to 10 hours of funding, but a public school district could choose to provide more. So that's why there's that 10 hours or more. They count as one full-time equivalent student when we're counting students for average daily membership purposes. And then if a student is enrolled in at least 6, but less than 10, their average daily membership count is prorated. And then if they are receiving less, let's see, fewer than 6, they're not included in a district's average daily membership. Okay, but there's more. Everyone's on the same page now, and then I'm going to confuse you. So if you remember, average daily membership, we're just counting butts in seats, essentially. When it comes to the calculation of the long-term weighted daily membership, we're applying the weights, right? And pre-K has a negative weight right now. So even though if a child is receiving 10 hours of pre-kindergarten services or more, they're counted as one full-time student, the same way that a 12th grader or a 6th grader is counted. It's a different weight than a 6th grader or a 12th grader. So, and it's a negative weight. So it's essentially diluting the number of students that in the long-term weighted ADM calculation.
That same dilution exists even if they are at a school that's offering full-time public pre-K, like an
Correct.
all-day program.
Correct.
So if we want to give everybody the various scenarios, you're a school district, you have no on-site pre-K. The only pre-K that you offer is a $3,600 voucher, somewhere around there.
Something around that. Mhm.
Yeah, to attend 10 hours a week of a pre-K program at a private provider. That school district essentially writes checks out to all the private providers for that amount of money that is set in statute. It gets to count that student as a 0.46 student. In
Math that happens before that, I have to
Yes.
say. Ezra
Yeah.
is, remember, JFO is in the
Not that
room.
simple.
So I have to say, there is math that happens before that, but yes.
okay, then other what?
They're counted as one full-time student,
Right, that's right.
but then they're weighted negatively.
Yeah. Then you have schools that offer within their sort of system, just 10 hours a week of pre-K. Because that's what the law calls for. And then you have some that offer full day or half day or more, those are more than 10 hours a week of pre-K. They're still only counting the students in the same way. And there's no sort of voucher or tuition involved in that sort of system. Yes.
So, sorry if this is not a good question, but my understanding of weights was that the purpose of them was to identify students that need a little bit more, like a special ed student or a student that, had high ACEs or something, because we need more resources for them. So I guess I don't understand why a whole bunch of like 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds would we'd need less resources and be like, oh, this is gonna be easier on the school system.
So the simple answer is that when we did the weighting bill and had the weighting study done, it just didn't touch pre-K.
Right.
Okay.
That's the simple answer.
Pre-K teacher, they'll agree.
But there are other programs for students who
Triple E.
need special services through Triple E. And then, you know, the just from a math point of view, if you're largely using private providers and you're writing out a check for $3,600 and you are counting a student as 0.46, you know, if you want to, the taxing capacity you're gaining is actually significantly more than the check you're writing out. So that's why it really does need a major revamp.
Okay.
Then if you're, can I follow up? I
Yeah.
think you're, so even if you took that scenario and you're providing in the school 10-hour programs, you've got a classroom space, you have licensed teachers, you have, and that's even if you're just only doing the 10-hour, not doing full time. Your expense of providing high quality pre-K to that student likely far exceeds what if you were tuitioning.
I think the point
I think
four
that's what
six
it
was originally based on providing only 10 hours within your school.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So the 10 hours is, oh, sorry, you can go
It's
first.
okay.
The 10 hours is also something that is kind of stuck for me. That seems like not a lot. That's like 2 hours a day of pre-kindergarten. Okay, I mean, my 3-year-old is going to 6 or 7.
So that's why we're getting a big report on
Okay.
pre-K with possible recommendations for legislative action.
Okay,
That's why many people have thought, if you're providing a full day program, you should get a full count.
or even a half day, but 2's not even a half day.
I wanna let Rip Quimby get her question out, but
Yeah.
you're raising something that I need to bring up for you
Yes.
all.
So that was sort of first thing, if they are less than 6 hours, they're not counted. But does the weight count?
No,
Okay, and I believe just under the proposal that we've received from the governor's office with weighting, it counts pre-K as one, not as negative 5.4. Is
think
that
so.
in the- Thank you.
may I add some additional context regarding length of school day?
Sure.
The length of school day is set in state board rule for K through 12.
Mhm.
So as you all are embarking on this discussion and you're using the term full day pre-K, that is an undefined term right now. The state board rules define for kindergarten, a full day is a minimum of 2 instructional hours. However, in any calendar week, 5 school days may be counted if the total number of hours of instructional time is equal to or exceeds 10 hours per week. So when you are talking about a full day of pre-K, someone could get real cute and say, oh, look at this. They're talking about treating pre-K kids as kindergartners. There is a law that says a full day is technically 2 hours a day or 10 hours a week. So it's just something to consider on what full day means to you.
Very good point. Representative Long, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was. It's more of a comment. It is also because of the way I'm following up on your comments. The way we offer this, there's a disincentive often for a school to provide this. In fact, one of mine considering dropping 3-year-old pre-K because it's just not, it's hard to staff it. And I mean, it's hard to staff it because there's little staff too. And I just want to advocate for the need to make sure that we're identifying children's needs. And at some point, the Triple E program is really important for us to understand as we're working through this whole conversation, how important it is to identify kids early and make those connections. That my experience is that public schools or the schools who are operating pre-K-12 really support pre-K education and programs. They're different for 3 and 4-year-olds.
So I have a question, given our sort of new childcare law and funding system, which I know does not speak specifically to pre-K. In the years that I've been here, we've often had, when we talked about pre-K, we've often had licensed childcare providers come in, and especially those with 4 or 5 stars. And I've always asked, would I know the difference during the day of when pre-K is taking place and when high quality childcare is taking place? And they generally always said no. It's all that way.
Yeah.
So last year, we significantly increased the amount of payments to childcare centers through the CCFAP program. And I guess this is a philosophical point to ponder for the committee more so than a direct question to you, but it just ask you to correct me if I'm saying it wrong. But so we now have additional resources for childcare programs. In addition to those who have pre-K programs are also receiving the tuition payment from the school system. So sort of as we move forward and we've got these different increased funding streams coming into the private sector, we may want to think about whether those funds would be better directed at private or at the public system. If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
I think so. You've got increased CCFAP payments here for high quality childcare centers. You've got tuition that comes in as well for pre-K. So there's different increasing levels of payments coming in. So it probably just needs a relook.
I have a this is now my ignorance around the details of the childcare program. Does CCFAP support and subsidies go up to through age 5 or up through pre-K, or is that just 0 to 3?
It's not just 0 to 3, it's 0 through 5, whenever a child enters kindergarten.
Enters kindergarten.
Yeah.
So potentially a child could or family could be getting a significant CCFAP subsidy and Act 166 pre-K.
Yes, the way CCFAP is structured is that the benefit is larger for individuals who have a lower FPL. So as a family moves up the FPL, their subsidy gets smaller and smaller. But yes, there are certainly families that qualify for the universal pre-K benefit and a CCFAP benefit.
Right, and through our bill, we increased eligibility for CCFAP and increased CCFAP, how much the CCFAP payment is. Is that right?
Yes, so I'm trying to think of the exact numbers off the top of my head. There's no copay for, I want to say families are under 200 FPL. And now the benefit, we tiered it and we changed it 3 different times over the, so I'm not sure where it came. You'd have to look 400 or 500 FPL. But the benefit goes up, to middle class families. But their benefit isn't a full subsidy. They're getting a portion.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
In statute, kindergarten is not a required program.
The compulsory age of attendance in Vermont is 6 to 16.
I think that I'm just going to surmise that we haven't really touched on tackling the kindergarten statute update because basically everybody operates full day kindergarten and everybody
They-
chooses to attend.
They do, which is why I just wanted to bring it up, because if we're having this conversation, it's important that we know that we are serving the children the way the law follows the way we intend to serve our state.
Would you mind speaking a little bit to what prompted the legislation to create the pre-K report? Kind of what we're going to be getting, who served on the committee, that sort of thing.
This is Act 76. This was the act where the sort of substantial changes to the Child Care Financial Assistance Program happened. Within that, there was a section 2. This is what you're going to be talking about tomorrow. There was created the Pre-K Implementation Committee, and it required a plan. So we could walk through it now. I think there's a plan for us to walk through it again tomorrow. But in terms of membership, the committee is composed of the following members: Secretary of Education or designee, who shall serve as co-chair; Secretary of Human Services or designee, who shall serve as co-chair; Executive Director of the Vermont Principals Association or designee; Executive Director of the Vermont Superintendents Association or designee; the Executive Director of the Vermont School Boards Association or designee; Executive Director of the Vermont National Education Association or designee; Chair of the Vermont Council of Special Education Administrators or designee; Executive Director of the Vermont Curriculum Leaders Association or designee; Executive Director of Building Bright Futures or designee; representative of a pre-qualified private provider who's operating a licensed center-based childcare and preschool program appointed by the speaker; a representative of a pre-qualified private provider providing pre-K at a regulated family childcare home. Regulated means registered or licensed. The Head Start Collaboration Office Director, Executive Officer of Let's Grow Kids, representative appointed by After School Inc., Vermont After School Inc., representative appointed by the Vermont Association for the Education of Young Children, regional pre-K coordinator appointed by the Vermont Principals Association, 2 family representatives, one with a child 3 years of age or younger when the committee initially convenes, and the second with a pre-K age child when the committee initially convenes, appointing by Building Bright Futures Council, and a member of the School Construction Aid Task Force. And then in terms of the responsibilities of this group, the committee is to examine the delivery of pre-K in Vermont and make recommendations to expand access for children through the public school system or private providers under contract with the school district or both. The committee is to examine and make recommendations on the changes necessary to provide pre-K education to all children by or through the public school system on or before July 1 of 26, including transitioning who are 3 years of age from the 10-hour pre-K benefit to childcare and early education. And the committee's recommendation is to consider the needs of both the state and local education agencies, the minimum number of hours that shall constitute full school day for both pre-K and kindergarten, whether there are areas of the state where pre-K education can be more effectively and conveniently furnished in an adjacent state due to geographic considerations, benchmarks and best practices to ensure high quality pre-K education, measures to ensure capacity is available to meet the demand for pre-K education, special education services for children participating in pre-K in both public and private settings, any necessary infrastructure changes to expand pre-K, costs associated with expanding pre-K, including fiscally strategic options to sustain an expansion of pre-K, recommendations for the oversight of pre-K systems, and any other issues the committee deems appropriate. So that was the portion. Also, hate leaving your question unanswered about the FPL, or hate not having the answer. So I'm pulling that up and I'll let you know when I have that.
Should be, I think it's fine.
is it 575?
And we have 4.
And then there's some folks with no copayment. I will get it and I will let you know when I have it.
Fair to say it's significantly different than what it was.
Yes, it is. Yep, 575 is the top, and then the copayment. Another big change is that so copayment shall be assigned to the whole family and shall not increase if more than one eligible child is enrolled in childcare. So that's a huge change from how the program was structured before. So if a family has 2 children enrolled in childcare, they're treated as if they have 1 child for the purpose of calculating what their benefit would be. Okay, and then families with a annual gross income of less than or equal to 175% of the current FPL shall not have a family copayment. So the range really starts 175 to 575.
Thank you both very much. We'll take 5 minutes and then we'll be back on at 5.